Hello. So my question is, how can I deepen my connection with the divine so that I can further...
Your connection is deepened by not hindering it. Your connection is natural. It's like, how can I let the cork float? Keep your hands off of it. Your connection will be there unless you say, I don't like that. I don't like that. You've been mean to me. This was hard. I remember this. If you don't do that thing you do, your cork floats. The deepening of it. Can't really deepen it. You can consistent it. You can allow the momentum of it until you can naturalize it. You can become accustomed to it. There's nothing more than allowing the connection between that broader perspective. You can bask in it, and you can enjoy it, and you can savor it, and you can acknowledge it when it's happening. But when you say, how can I deepen it? That's, how can I make it more than it is? And we say, you can't get there from there because you're focused upon what it isn't. Did you hear that? Tricky. And it sounds a little nitpicky, but we know that you can hear the distinction. Milk it when it's there, and when it's not, just leave it alone. Because if you take a nap, or if you meditate, or if you give it enough time, your cork will rise again. But there's something about trying to make it rise that is so much justification and so much effort that it's counterproductive.
I understand.
Yeah.
I've been listening to these impulses in my heart. Magical and mystical things are happening for me, through me, and around me.
We like the mixed message that you gave there. It's good. I've been listening with my heart. We like that distinction because your inner being is offering a vibration to you, which you're translating. And so that emotional impulse really is that first really listening. I'm feeling emotions and I'm following the emotion. I'm listening with my heart. And the more you do that, then in time you'll be able to listen with your ears and see with your eyes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what that is my question, because I'm seeing and I'm hearing, and it seems somewhat jumbled at times.
It may be, but it's about being ready to be ready to be ready. Esther sat with Jerry. They meditated for 9 months every day for 15 or 20 minutes. They didn't miss a day because they liked the experience of a quieted mind. And during that 9 months, there were no revelations, even though we were offering blocks of thought to Esther, but she was just breathing them away because she'd been encouraged to focus on her breathing. And when your mind wanders, and it will, focus on your breathing again. So every time she started thinking something, it was her assumption that it was her thought, and so she just focused on her breathing more. And so since we couldn't get through to her in that way, we offered her the impulse of movement. So it felt like flying to her, and she liked it. It felt so good. When your eyes are closed and you're in that state of detachment and now you're moving, it was like soaring. She loved the feeling of that. And then one day, after doing that for nearly a month, some aspect of some movement, and so maybe for 2 or 3 days she was really allowing it. She realized that we were spelling letters with her nose. She was receiving movement, but it was movement that was indicating communication. And when she realized that, then she began to listen, you see. So it's just a progressive thing. Just don't try to make it more than it is, but understand that your inner being is wanting to communicate with you. Say it again. Your inner being is communicating with you. And your work is to put yourself in the receiving mode and let it be whatever it is. And then don't dictate what your inner being talks to you about. Sometimes we encourage that you play with your music system. Sometimes we encourage that you move your furniture around. Path of least resistance can take you into all kinds of wonderful things, you see.
I understand.
And so?
I understand.
Just sit there and receive a question. Don't try to receive it. Just sit there until a question occurs to you. Because it will. Because sometimes your inner being is even offering you a question to contemplate, because that's the next logical step.
Will you connect me? Can you help me connect with my spirit guide?
That's like saying, I got to take that cork and I got to push it up there. There's no help that is needed. You do it all the time. You're in sync with that more than you know. In fact, that's the thing that we most want to convey to you. You're more connected than you're giving yourself credit to. In fact, connection is such a natural state of being to you that you don't even know you're doing it. Wouldn't you say these things of yourself? I'm more often glad than sad. Isn't that something that you would say about yourself? Wouldn't you say, I feel good more than I feel bad? Wouldn't you say, I feel eager more than I feel lethargy? Wouldn't you say, I have more clarity than confusion? Then wouldn't you say you're in alignment more often than you're not? Yes, but there's something that is making you say, but it's still not enough. And so what is the evidence that you're seeking that would make you feel like you've achieved this connection with your source? Do you ever find yourself just moving maybe in traffic and all of a sudden you just take a really deep breath for no reason? That's connection from source. Do you ever yawn? That's channeling. That's the cells of your body asking for more and your broader perspective giving the impulse to draw in more. You see what we're getting at? So just don't second guess yourself. Watch for evidence of it and then emphasize that when it happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
I've been noticing.
So now we're going to ask you some questions about her, because you've been observing and you've been in sync with what we're asking. And so we're just going to let you feel a little insight from them who are also connected. And so you can trust what they are observing because they're tuned in, tapped in, turned on. It's easier for them than it is for you because you're in the hot seat. So do you find our friend more thoughtful than is really good for her? Yes. Oh. Do you think she's thinking too much? Yes. Do you think she knows more than she knows she knows? Yes. Yeah. You think she might be trying a little too hard? Yes. Can you tell by looking at her that she's often in alignment? Can you feel the energy of her, and do you know that to be true? Yes. Yeah. We think this is a really good time for a segment of refreshment.
Thank you. I just relax and realize that nothing has to happen in this moment. I have the right to relax into my good feelings. I have many things to share, but I'm just going to share one thing and let you speak because I believe your energy will pick up upon mine. In a way, I'm similar to Esther in that I hear voices and I hear things, and it's been about a year since that has started.
Can you feel the difference? This is important. Can you feel the difference when you're really in that receiving mode?
Of course.
And when you're trying to make it happen?
Of course.
Yeah.
That, I don't know if you call it a trial, a summoning, whatever that energy was that got me from where I was to where I am now has transformed my life.
Yeah.
And
Well,
once,
your desire was strong, and when you gave up the struggle, there it came.
You're exactly right. And the thing that I realized that I had to do was my filter was off because some of those voices sometimes were giving. And once I realized that it was me who was the filter, that I had some negative energy that I had to get rid of. And it was because of my thoughts. My thoughts weren't in the right place. And once I changed my thoughts.
We really like what you're saying here. We want to focus on the word filter for a minute. Because most people want to put a filter in to keep unwanted things out. You're wanting to meditate yourself into an absence of a filter so the pure stuff can get through. Isn't that interesting? Really good.
Really good. And so I'm now at a place where I am complete allowing. I feel like I never step out of my vortex because I realize that even those contrasting moments will help me reach softly for what I want.
So you understand step 5. Step 1 is ask. Step 2 is source answers. Step 3 is you learn to allow. Step 4 is you get really good at it. You've mastered allowing. And then step 5 is you're back in step 1, and it's okay with you because you understand contrast is necessary to put more in the pipeline.
Yes. And I've gotten to the place now where I understand all of this. And it seems like I should be sharing it or doing something to help others.
But you see,
and I'm coming to the place where I don't
feel the effort in should.
Right.
Feel the filter in should.
Right.
And trust law of attraction to bring to you those who are ready to hear, and that you will feel the inspiration about when to share. In other words, we are really, really wise. We know it all so far. You keep coming up with new stuff. It always will be that way. But we know that in lack of readiness to hear, that there's no point in torturing someone with knowledge, even if they want it, if they're not ready to hear it, because it just makes them more resistant. Have you noticed?
Yes, definitely.
Have you ever had a conversation with someone, you're having a sort of debate, and it's about the same subject, and you have opposing opinions, and so they speak and you don't listen, and then you speak and they don't listen, and so you're not listening, they're not listening, and the more they say, the more you dig into what you believe, and the more you say, the more they dig into what they believe, and there's no movement. You've had those experiences, haven't you? Well, this is like you and you. This is what you do to yourself. You have desires that your beliefs challenge, and beliefs that your desires challenge. So you've got this thing going on, and so when you just stop the debate and allow that broader perspective to reign supreme, then you start receiving.
I've come to realize, like someone told me, it's no business of mine what you think about me.
Yeah.
You know, and so once I internalized that, and
That's a big one, though, because as our friend said earlier, I'm sort of a chameleon, because I seek harmony so much with you, and because I want so much to help you, then you liking me seems important to me. And we say that doesn't work out very well, because when you liking me is more important to me than me being in harmony with all that I am, then I haven't got anything to give you.
right. I'm so at peace now because I realize now that I don't have to do anything.
Let's take this a step further, because this is a leading edge conversation, and that when you want to, oh boy, is it going to be wonderful. When I do it, because I can feel the heavens have parted, and I'm on the cusp, and I'm the one that gets to break into this new place, and this is what I came for. I'm not doing it because I should. I'm doing it because it's come to the place where I get to. Yeah.
That's great. I just wanted to say I love you, and thank you for calling them. I know a lot of other people probably have more desiring questions, so I'm just going to leave it at that.
There's no one with more desire than you, but there's almost no one with as much allowing as you've got going on. You're right there. You're right there.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been manifesting purchasing a thoroughbred racehorse. And 2 days later, the source gave me the name of the horse.
Yes.
And most of my manifestations, about 90% of them come true. But when it does come, there is a steady flow, and then it starts to trickle, and a steady flow and trickle.
Well, that's logical, because momentum will play out. See it as a sort of pipeline where you've put all of this desire into your vortex, and now you're receiving it. And there are different things that are in your vortex that are at different degrees of readiness to manifest. And so here's a really good analogy. Once something manifests, it's like gum that you've chewed all the flavor out of.
Yes.
It's time to go get another stick of gum. And so that's a normal thing. Esther sat on an airplane last week next to a man, and they were visiting about this and that and this and that and this and that and this and that. And he talked about where he had gone to school some years before, and Esther commented that she had a friend who's a professor at that school who teaches about and helps children with autism. And he was startled for a moment, and he said, I have 4 grown children, and my second son has autism. And he described somewhat what his experience with this son is, and he said, I took him to the Kentucky Derby 3 years in a row, and in the 3 years, he chose the winning horse because he liked the name. And Esther said, well, I'm sure that's the excuse he used for why he chose it. And then Esther talked to him just a little bit. They didn't talk about Esther's work. She didn't want to freak him out. Esther talked about the difference between receiving a thought and thinking a thought, and how she is certain that this young man is better at receiving thoughts than most people, and not as good at thinking thoughts as most people. And this man sort of sat back as far away from Esther as he could to get a good look at her as he was contemplating what she had said, because that's the experience that he's been having. In other words, sometimes you just get in the receptive mode, and you don't have to have autism to be more prone to receiving thought than to thinking thought, but sometimes you need to stop thinking thoughts. You need to stop thinking so hard. No longer try so hard. Don't make so much effort. Don't try to work it out or figure it out. Just trust that it is figured out and worked out, and that you are going to be the receiver of as much as you're ready to receive. Isn't that a nice way of looking at it?
Yes.
Yes.
And the other thing I've noticed that you always talk about contrast. And wherever there is contrast, I have the ability of turning a contrast into my favor, where I profit from it and come out smelling like roses.
There are always those who thrive in the worst of times, and there are always those who suffer in the best of times. It's all about your mindset, isn't it? Yeah, really good.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.